And good evening and welcome. I'm Mark Pinto from Phoenixville Public Library, and welcome to our program tonight on a subject that could be kind of scary for a lot of people who are contemplating it. Downsizing, getting rid of stuff can be a daunting task. But we're happy to have with us tonight John Hall from Caring Transitions of Chester County, who's going to take some of the scariness and mystery out of the process, we hope, tonight. John, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mark. Good evening, everyone. And it's a good sign that folks are on. That means they're safe. So welcome. I'll tell you a bit about myself before we get into this. I'm a 40-year resident of Chester County. I'm the owner of Caring Transitions of Chester Springs, or Chester County. I live in Chester Springs. Our business is a franchise. There are more than 200 locations across the United States. I've been in this business for about 7 years. Before that, I spent a number of decades in the healthcare sector. And before that, I was in the technology sector. My wife joins me in this business part-time, and she was one of the first 100 employees of QVC and has a deep retail background. I've been doing this for about 7 years, kind of my second career, so that we can give back and help people who are struggling with transitions. We kind of got into this because we were faced with assisting family members with transitioning from home, my mother-in-law's home of 52 years. We transitioned her at a time when she started to fall ill and my father-in-law had passed away. And we really recognized the trauma and the stress that's associated with trying to relocate and transition at that stage of your life. So that's a little bit about us. I have a full staff. Most of my staff has experience working in the senior marketplace. I, until very recently, had a retired infectious disease doctor who was on our staff. She retired when COVID hit. I've got folks who worked as activity directors at senior communities, directors of adult daycare centers, folks who have worked as coordinators and directors at senior communities. So our folks are really well-versed in many of the issues that seniors are struggling with. So with that said, what do we do? What makes me a person that can talk about this? What we do is we reduce the stress that families and folks are feeling associated with a transition. The most common word that I hear is overwhelmed. Families, individuals are overwhelmed by the prospect of having to move after 30, 40, 50 years. They're overwhelmed by all the stuff they've accumulated. They're overwhelmed by the decisions that have to be made. It's just very, very difficult. So what we do is we can do any number of things, everything from helping families declutter a home, to helping floor plan with respect to what will fit in my new residence. We do packing. So we'll pack the whole house. We coordinate the move. We hire movers. We will unpack and remove all the packing materials and stage the kitchen and the bedrooms and hang up the clothes and hang pictures and mirrors. We do that all in a day. We will help liquidate items. We do online auctions for items that are of value, have market value. We coordinate donations and we do cleanouts. So we clean all the stuff out that's neither donated or sold or taken with you. So that's the scope of our services. We've done this hundreds of times with hundreds of families. We do it every week. So with that said, the goal today is to kind of get at your concerns, get at the challenges you face, and give you some direction and some answers. Because the hardest thing for most people is getting started. It's, I hear continually from people, I walk into a room, I look around, I shuffle some papers, I sit down, and then I leave. I look at a closet and I don't know how to begin. My basement's filled with stuff, my attics are filled with stuff, my garages are overwhelming. And so what I hope to accomplish today is to kind of say to you, there are resources there are game plans there, and you can get through it. Folks on this call, I'm sure, have varying levels of financial resources, physical capabilities, family support, time to do it, and many different reasons for wanting to do it. So all of that gets put into a big pot, and it doesn't matter where you're coming from or what you've got, there are ways to get around the challenges and concerns that you have. So the first thing that I like to talk to folks about is your mindset, because that's absolutely critical in your motivation and your ability to execute on anything. So I try to get away from the term downsizing. I use it in a title because that's what people relate to. But what I think is a more appropriate title is right sizing. Whenever you say down anything, it has a negative connotation. And in this case, it really isn't a negative. You're not doing something negative. You're right sizing. And if you're like me, I have a home that I raised 2 children in, and it's spacious and it's big and it suited our needs. Well, I don't have any kids living here anymore. So my wife and I basically live in 3 rooms, a kitchen, a family room, and a bedroom. So we have all this space and we really don't need it. So we, like many of you, are thinking about what is the right size for us. And I was particularly reminded of it this morning when I walked outside after the storm, regarding all the work that needs to be done after a storm, all the branches that have to be picked up, the leaves, everything that has to just be maintained. And I don't want to do that anymore. So many of you are probably thinking the same thing. So getting the right mindset of saying, I'm moving to a more appropriate living arrangement. How do I do that? And not feeling bad about it. The other thing that folks often get stuck on is, I'm forced to do this. Why am I doing this? And a lot of times it's not that you're forced to do it. It's a more appropriate place. It's more secure. It frees up time for you to do things that are most important. It gives you access to socialization. It's safer. So thinking about all of those things and thinking about why you may want to right size is really important. It's the motivator for you. So what's the first question that comes to mind? I see there's a question here about Nora has said, I don't think I have a lot of value, but there's a lot of stuff. That's the common theme, that folks get into a situation and then realize that it seems to be endless. It just goes on and on. So how do you get started? How do you get started? Well, the first thing is you've got to make decisions while you can. You're empowered now to walk around and ask yourself 3 fundamental questions. Do I need it? Do I use it? Do I love it? And think about that. Do I need it? Well, I need a bed, right? Probably need a coffee maker. I need a hair dryer. I may need my lift chair. I may need certain parts of my bedroom furniture. I may need certain medical items. But after that, what do you really need? Do I use it? Do you have recreational items? As an example, I was in my basement recently, and I'm not a golfer, but I had 3 sets of golf clubs. I realized I barely need one, and I quickly decided that One, my son needed to get one set, and another set I offered up to a friend, right? I didn't need it. Do I love it? Is this something that is really cherished to me? And that's not everything. That's not every item that's in a china cabinet. That's not every item in your house. There are a handful of things that have very deep sentimental value. And so you really have got to assess those. So how do you do this so that it's not a groundhog day where every day you wake up and you look at the same things? What I suggest to folks is that you start by getting some dots. You can get dots at Staples or Michael's, just simple color-coded dots. And when you're in your home, you walk around and you take a red dot for things that you're wondering why you still have it. So if you got things that have just been hanging around and you know that it needs to go, just put a red dot on it. If there are things that are in your house that you absolutely know that you're going to take a green dot and put it on it. And then you walk around and you say, wow, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. Some people put a blue dot on things and say, this is earmarked for one of the family members. So my kids are going to take this. And if in fact that's the case and you are truly at a point where you're going to be downsizing, you need to get a commitment from those people that are going to take these items. Because what is very stressful is that when you think someone's going to take that and they never come around and get it, whether it's a sister, a brother, a child, a neighbor, and you become the person that has or bears all the stress when it's 2 weeks before you're moving and you still have a house full of things. So you establish a timeline, very simple. It's your timeline. So if you're a person who is going to put their house on the market in a month, or is going to put their house on the market in 6 months or a year, you establish a timeline and you say, okay, in whatever time from now, I need to have this stuff gone. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means I have to make decisions about what stuff is going to be gone. Where am I going to move? That's another question that you have to answer. So if you're at a stage where you're going to go to a senior community and move to a 1-bedroom apartment that's 800 square feet, and you're in 4,000 square feet now, or 2,000 square feet, you know the math. You got to get rid of a lot of stuff. It's not all going to fit. So if you've got a 3 or 4 bedroom home and you're moving to a 1-bedroom apartment, you've got 2 or 3 bedrooms of furniture you don't need. So quickly identify that. If you've got clothes in your closet that you don't wear, that don't fit anymore, start putting that to one side or moving it to another closet. If you've got tools and yard appliances that you're not going to use anymore, start identifying those. You're not going to be doing a lot of do-it-yourself stuff if you move to an apartment or to a senior community. If you're moving to Florida and you've got snow shovels and all the associated things with outdoor gardening, you know you're not going to need that if you move to a place on the water. So those are some simple ways to start getting at the issues that you have to deal with. Kitchen items for many, I see many women on this call. I'm a cook. We have a kitchen that if 100 people came to our house, we could feed them. Well, when we right size, we don't need 60 wine glasses or 4 sets of dishes or a pot and a pan to meet every need. So those are items that are going to need to be, dealt with. So simple areas like things that don't match. You go through your cabinets, you have coffee mugs from every place you've ever visited. You don't need 30 coffee mugs. You don't need 4 sets of china. You don't need place settings for 100 people. So these are things that you can do, and you can do fairly easily. How do you get started so you don't feel overwhelmed once you've walked around with dots? You can pick a room. You pick a room, you set a time, and you have the discipline to go in and say, okay, on Saturday, I'm going into the second bedroom, and I'm going to spend an hour or two, and I'm just going to identify or purge the things that I don't need. And the reason I say set a timeline and go to a single room is when you try to tackle everything, you tackle nothing, because it's like you're lining up against a giant wall of water and it just keeps cascading on you. So taking an hour or two at a time is manageable. You don't lose focus, you don't get fatigued, and you can reward yourself. It doesn't become a chore when it's only an hour or two. But if you sit down and say, I'm going to clear the basement today, and it's 600 square feet of stuff, you're going to be frustrated because you're going to be exhausted and you're not going to feel like you've made progress. The next piece, and that I think is really important, is to follow a rule that I think is simple. It's called Ohio. O for only, H for handle, I for it, and O for once. Ohio. Only handle it once. So often, folks are overwhelmed by the prospect of dealing with their situation that they shuffle things around from place to place. They start a process and then they just kind of move it to the side, and they move other stuff to another side, and then they leave the room after a couple hours and nothing's really gotten done, and they go back and redo it again. It's very common, it's human nature, but you need to have the discipline to only handle it once. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of questions about, well, how do I know what I should keep or what I should take? And that's really a perplexing situation for many people. It really depends, right? It depends on whether or not you have realistic expectations, right? And I saw a piece come up here, Antiques Roadshow has ruined us all. And it's true, because you watch a TV program and you see someone that comes in there with a porcelain figure that looks pretty ordinary, and they're told it's worth $15,000. Well, I can tell you the Antiques Roadshow is, they look at tens of thousands of items to find the right people that happen to be lucky enough to have that lottery ticket, which is that little item that's worth a bunch of money. For the most part, you can do a pretty quick assessment of what's of value and what isn't. And I can share with you that the reality is we as people often have place a higher value on our things than other people. And why is that? Because we associate our things with our experiences, our memories. So when we look at our brake front that cost thousands of dollars, and it's filled with beautiful pieces that we got when we got married, it's a very happy time for all of us. And we've taken great care of it. It looks as good as it did the day that we bought it. And unfortunately, if you have a china cabinet, many of them will not even be sold. And if they're sold, they may go for $100 or $200. And that's the challenge that we face. The charities don't take china cabinets because the people who want them don't have china, don't have crystal, and don't have a lot of space. And the younger people don't use them very often because that's not their style. So that's just one example of, the one of the challenges that we all face in letting go of things. But having someone that has some expertise come through and say, you know, you got some things that are of value that you're not thinking are of value, like patio furniture, like power tools, like a handful of collectibles. There may be coins. You may have handbags, jewelry. Some of those things can really hold their value. But old clothes, upholstered furniture, electronics, so many of those things lose their value very, very quickly. So if you're delaying because you don't know what things are worth, you want to call a professional to come in and give you some guidance around what you've got that's of value and what really isn't. You may have some things that are just dirty and nasty that you don't want to deal with. And those are things like old gas containers, insecticide containers, paint cans, things like that that are just, you can't throw in the trash, but they need to be disposed of. And those are things that oftentimes you can take to a community recycling event. But in the case of things like latex paint, they won't take it. And many of us have gallons of it. So there you need to call someone, or you need to get creative and buy a lot of kitty litter and dump it in and stir it up and wait for it to dry. But those are things that you should be thinking about dealing with, because you're not going to be using them. You're not going to take them with you, and they're just taking up space. What do you do with the things that are of value that you've identified? Most of you are probably aware of consignment shops. So consignment shops will take some of your items, although these days, most of them are bursting at the seams, and they're very, very selective in what they will take, and they will charge you to pick them up. There are a variety of auction options that are out there. We happen to have our own online auction capability, and we sell lots of things. When I say lots of things, a whole variety of items, from collectibles to furniture to just about everything in between. And we are proponents of the online auction capabilities, because you get access to a very, very large audience. So in our case, we have folks bidding from across the country on our items. And even locally, you get really broad appeal through an online auction, because folks will continue to bid. And if they win, they know they've got the item. So they'll drive several hours to pick up an item. They'll pick up a leather sofa that they'll, from 150 miles away. We've done estate sales. We did one a few weeks ago. They're not as effective at liquidating all of your items, because you only get access to hundreds of people versus thousands of people. And you're dependent upon weather and distance and parking and a bunch of other things that I think just inhibit your ability to be able to get top dollar and sell everything. So as you look at all of the options that are out there, these things can happen as quickly or as, I won't say slowly, but over an extended period of time if you'd like. So if you're 60 days from needing to vacate your home because it's sold quickly in this crazy market, and you've got a bunch of stuff and you don't know what to do with it, then you're probably going to need to call some professionals that can come in, quickly assess what you're going to be taking with you. Will it fit? What should be donated and what should be sold, so that in 60 days, your house is going to be clear, and you'll have realized as much value from it as possible. But most importantly, you're not going to be stressed worrying about, what am I going to do? Many folks think that having a yard sale is a viable option. And I can tell you unequivocally that may be the worst idea you could have these days, just because it's a lot of work. You get limited exposure and you don't make much money, and then you've got to put everything away. So yard sales aren't the greatest of ideas that I've seen. I feel like I'm transmitting to you guys a little bit in that we don't have the interaction, but I would say getting a team pulled together is also going to be really important. So if you've got family members or friends that can help, take the help, but don't wear out your welcome. What I mean by that is a lot of folks say, boy, I'm going to have access to friends or family, so let's work all weekend, right? So we're going to come in, we're going to go from Friday to Sunday, and we're just going to do this. Well, very often your productivity is not as great as you'd like, and people really aren't having a very good time. If you can get folks to work in 2 and 3 hour increments, that is great. They're most productive, you're most productive, and then you try to make a social event out of it. You have pizza, you have some drinks, you make it so that people enjoy being a part of this process, as opposed to it being a day of hard work. Spread it out over time if you can, so that you can incrementally assess how you're doing and not feeling overwhelmed. So if you say, I'm tackling the garage this weekend, great. Don't say I'm tackling the house this weekend. I'm doing the garage. I'm doing the study. I'm going to deal with my kitchen. Whatever it is, just have a plan and have that plan executed. If you need help, get a number of people there. I mean, the more the merrier. But for them to be productive, you will have had to have done your homework with respect to assessing at a high level what is going to stay, what isn't going to stay, so that people aren't kind of bumping into each other. So with that, I want to open it up to questions, because this is a very broad topic, and most of you will probably have some very specific situations, and I'd be happy to address them.
So feel free to unmute, or you can type your question into the chat. There was one question in there, John, about the online auction.
Mm-hmm. Is this the long one there?
No, the one.
How can we access the online auction? Okay, so our online auction is at ccpa.ctbids.com. Did you get that?
Yeah, I just typed that into the chat, yes.
I just want to make sure I'm doing it right. So the online auctions aren't, for us in Chester County, we're going to be putting one up next week for a collective group of estates. So these are small items that were from various homes. It wasn't enough in any one home to do a sale, so we're aggregating them, which is beneficial to them. It keeps the costs down. It broadens the appeal, and we usually do very well. And let me explain to you how that happens. So when we do an online auction, if we're doing a whole house, if we're doing your home, and when I say a whole house, probably 80% of the items, 75% of the items, we'll come in and we'll do photographs. We'll bring a team in, usually two groups of 2. They'll take 6 to 10 pictures of each item. And I always disclose, we highlight the flaws of the items. So if there are scratches or there are stains or there are any kind of imperfections, we note those, because we don't want buyer's remorse. We want them to really know what's going on. We do the descriptions. We do a vast amount of advertising. It runs for 7 to 10 days. So it's not an auction like, where you go on Saturday morning from 9 to 12 and it happens. This actually is up and running for a week to 10 days. And people can enter their bids. and up until the end point, which may be at 7 o'clock on a Sunday night. And then we would handle the collection of the money and the pickup of the items. The items are sold out of your home, unless there are only a handful of items that we're taking out and aggregating. So that just want to be clear. So some folks think, okay, we're going to do an online auction, come and take all my stuff away. That doesn't work that way. The things are sold right out of your house. The good thing is that the people who come to pick it up within about a 4-hour window on a specific day. And we have a team of 3 or 4 people that oversee that whole process. And we know exactly who those people are because we have their identification information and their payment information. So that's the online auction. Who are these? So who are these professionals who help and what can they offer? So we, Carrying Transitions, are professionals. That's one group. I am what's called a certified relocation and transition specialist, which means I had to go through training in dealing with senior moves and a lot of the mental aspects of a transition for seniors. So being aware of some of the cognitive challenges that folks have, the physical limitations, as well as just the logistics of packing, moving, the safety issues, a whole host of items. And we do auctions. So we see, we work with thousands of items. We do research on market values for items through, what they've sold for at past auctions. We research to accurately describe items. So we do all those aspects. Now, there are other people who are senior move managers. There are people who are auctioneers. There are people who are movers. There are people who are professional organizers. So there's a host of resources out there. What I like about what we do is we do soup to nuts so that we can answer just about any of the questions that people have associated with a relocation. Another question from Melody. So Melody doesn't have a question. She says if she wants to throw things out, she takes photos for Craigslist and posts it under free, curb alert, and stuff's always picked up at the curb. That is a great alternative. There is another site called Buy Nothing. So if you wanted to give things away, you can post it there. You can do Facebook Marketplace for local areas for people to pick things up. There's the Liberty Thrift Ministries who will pick items up. You can do Green Drop, which will pick items up, and that's Purple Heart, American Red Cross, the National Federation for the Blind, and a Catholic Charities group. And they'll take up to, I think, 40 boxes or bagged items if you put them outside. So you can put clothing and dishes and small appliances, small lamps, things like that, and they'll take all of those. So the items to donate or free, there are a lot of resources for that. Is there an online auction similar to Carrying Transitions in Montgomery County? Well, we service, we're off Chester County, but we service Montgomery County, all of the main line, which is Delaware County. So we're not restricted to just Chester County. So we can sell anywhere for the most part. Are there any other questions that I'm missing? And you can unmute and you can talk if you guys wanted to ask questions that way. Is there a good place to take collections like stamps or coins? So yes, we sell a lot of coins. In our upcoming sale, we have some things that are called Krugerrands. And I have 1 ounce gold pieces from South Africa. They will sell probably between $1,800 and $2,200 a piece. We do a lot of silver coins. So we've sold a lot of silver dollars, silver half dollars, Indian pennies, lots of silver going back into the 1800s. So coins sell very well. Stamps, we've sold some stamps. They're a little different. They're not quite as liquid in the marketplace as coins. And you may want to take that to a stamp collector. You know, there are lots of shops that are coin collectors and stamp collectors. I think if you sell directly to a collector, you're going to get just a percentage. You're going to get less of a percent of the value because they need to make money and resell it. So it's a good place to get some idea of what your items are worth. May not be the best place to sell them, but it depends on what you have. It really does. So it says, are we in Iowa? There is a Caring Transitions in Iowa. And then I see Marshalltown, and we have done sales for folks in the Marshalltown area. How does Caring Transitions earn its money or its revenue? So if we are doing an online auction, we're going to get paid based on a percentage of the sales price. That percentage varies depending upon what we're selling, the value of things we're selling. If we're doing packing or clean out, it's based on our hours. So folks say, what does it cost to move into a 1-bedroom apartment? And I say, it depends, because it depends on how much you're taking and what we need to do. An interesting example is, you know, when we do clean outs, folks say, well, what's the cost to clean out my house? We did a house in Collegeville that was only 2,200 square feet. And we took out, I think it was over 30,000 pounds of stuff, none of which was donatable or usable. It was a hoarder house. So it was 7 large dumpsters of stuff. And so that's one extreme. And we've gone to homes that are 4,000 square feet, and it's been less than a dumpster. But we make our money based on either an hourly rate or a percentage of what we sell. Let's see.
Anything else for John?
I wanted to add one other thing. You know, folks want to know what things are worth. If you go into eBay and you go into along the left column and you look at, you check sold and completed, that will give you an idea of what things are worth. Looking on eBay at what things are selling for is very misleading. I have a pile of printouts from a client who spent a weekend researching what the value of his Yadros were, and Swarovski, and some artwork, and came back and handed me this stack of paper and said, look at the value of these. And in one instance, there was a Waterford figurine that was selling on eBay for $4,000. So he was very excited. And we came back and we found that same item had sold for $162 most recently. And the most that it sold for was about $180. So it was, whatever research he was doing or whatever price was out there wasn't correct. But with that said, you know, we also found with a client, you know, you do the Antiques Roadshow, we found a client who had a piece of glass laying on its side in a drawer in the living room. And he pulled it out and he showed it to me, and it was by Lalique. And I said, wow, well, that's nice. Generally, a Lalique piece will be worth $100 to $200 like that. Except this was a 1939 piece that was called a car mascot, and it was in a certain, it wasn't clear glass, it was opalescent. And the last one sold for $13,000. and it was sitting in a drawer on its side, and they had no idea what it was worth. So, you can find those things out by doing some searches, but you need to search on what it's sold for, not what the asking price is. Really, really important. Anything else out there? How does one become a certified transition analyst? Well, certified transition specialist. So first you have to have a couple years of experience working in the business or going through the training that they put us through at Caring Transitions. And then you need to go through a casework and then take a test. And so the test is certified by the Alzheimer's Review Board. So they're an official agency that has helped design this test to assess your competency in dealing with some of the psychosocial issues associated with transitions. So that's how you become one. You pay a fee, you take a course, you have experience, and then you get certified. Anything else out there? Any other questions? Hopefully this was helpful. It's much easier and more dynamic when we can all be in a room and kind of share ideas. So COVID has taken its toll on us a bit. But you see my contact information up there in the corner. If you have any questions, just feel free to contact me. If you'd like a visit, we do a free consultation to come out and kind of help you assess where you are and what you're doing. But our mission is really to help people. So do not hesitate to call. We'd be more than happy to talk to you. Oh, I see something dysfunctional came up. Yes, Alfred buys from us at times. It's a nice store, big store. But you don't get a lot of money, and that's the good thing is you get rid of it and it gets given forward. And so I think that's the best part of it. And another question here, any suggestions for after empty cleaning? We have a group that isn't a part of us, but follows us around. I have a lot of confidence in them as a partner. They do a great job of cleaning houses, doing a deep clean after we've cleared everything out. And we've had them in some of the most horrible situations you can imagine, with hoarding situations to your typical home turnover. Group that we use is called Help at Home with Pam. And she's out of Pottstown, and she does a fantastic job with her team, and they service the Phoenixville area all the time. So they're there a lot. But Help at Home with Pam is someone I'd highly recommend. And that's about it. I don't think I missed any questions. If I did, just ping me here before we hang up. Well, thank you.
Okay. Yep, right. Great stuff, John. Thank you.
All righty. Have a great night, everyone.
Yep, thanks for everybody for coming on tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, appreciate it. You're welcome. Take care, John. Thanks again.
All right, good night, Mark.
Good night now.